I'm really excited to review this book that I talked about on Sunday called God Is by Mallory Wyckoff. I hope that is in focus. I think it is. And before I even get into the book itself, I want to give a shout out to my friend Andrew Hicks, who actually bought me a copy of this book. Not only that, he got it signed by Mallory, the author. And there was a little note here for me. And the note says, "Child of God, may you continue to encounter the more in surprising ways." This book is an attempt to offer a different approach and even perspective on God and the language we use for God, and why that is important. Why it's important to broaden the language we use to refer to God, and how limiting some of the language that we've been traditionally given and using can be, and how dangerous it can even be when it's used inappropriately. So this is what this book sets out to do. So what I'm going to do, as I usually do, I'm going to just go through a couple quotes that spoke to me, and I want to discuss those quotes with you as I'm going through the book. "What confounds me more than God's willingness to inhabit human language is that so often our response is to clamp down with a perceived sense of certainty and rightness on what we think God says and means, to make absolute claims about divinity and truth, and to then retreat to our bunkers with weapons at the ready to shoot down anyone whose voice or perspective speaks a different word." God has presented himself and has allowed language to be an avenue to where we can experience him. So language is one avenue. What we often do is we get this language that we are comfortable with, and we start to judge and make theologies and conclusions about reality based on this language, and we just oppose every other way of speaking of God. And this is what she's getting at here. And it can be a dangerous thing, because language is language. Language is always meant to lead us somewhere. Language is not the end. It is the means to an end. So for us to just kind of close ourselves off to other ways of expressing the reality of God is, I think, is dangerous. When you're a creative person, you can appreciate this reality, the importance of incorporating other perspectives and being okay with that, and not just submitting to wherever you go or whatever someone says, but just being open to the dialogue and allowing that dialogue to affect you and influence you. On the next page, she says, "I've heard plenty of preachers and commentators boast that their expressions of God and truth are simply what the Bible says. I don't interpret the Bible. I just read it," they say. This is, of course, absurd. The Bible did not fall out of the sky, penned in modern English. Communities of readers and scholars over centuries have engaged in interpretive acts, and every time they move from the original language of a text, Hebrew, Aramaic, or Greek, to another language. And this is important because I can see someone saying that the biblical authors or the Bible itself does not absorb different language and different perspectives and different ways of approaching God. But that is all throughout Scripture. It wasn't written in English just to begin with. We have the Scriptures written in Aramaic, Hebrew, and Greek, and we translate it so that we can get it and understand it in English. So there's always been this effort to use language as a means to understanding and communicating God. And this is going on in the Bible. We've done this over the years, but I guess we'll only take it so far. We only open ourselves so much, and that's just interesting to think about. And on that same page 31, she says, "And God as communicator enters fully into this good creation and inhabits all of its complexities, all of its imprecision, and takes on our forms of communication that we might encounter the divine." And this is the first incarnation, God allowing the words, language, to be a means to commune with him and to experience him. What a beautiful thing. "A bigger perception of God, no longer bound by patriarchal norms, is good news for everyone, men very much included. When we're able to see God in fuller ways, we can access ourselves in fuller ways. We can resist the limiting structures and narratives that demand allegiance, even those that appear to be to one's personal profit, and embrace a far richer, a more robust world that reflects an equally robust God. There are people that benefit from a particular metaphor or language or set of language around God. She gets to that, and we gotta think about that. We gotta wrestle with that. Are we not confident in our decision to go away from traditional language because we're so attached to what we benefit from, a particular set of metaphors and language? We gotta think about that. I gotta think about that. This highlights my insistence that any singular notion of God, masculine or feminine, is insufficient. I want to add to the collection of God metaphors so that none of us will ever believe we only have one lens through which to view the infinite God who can be glimpsed but never fully. This is the heart of the book. She's trying to provide different metaphors other than the masculine or feminine so that we can have a different plethora of lenses through which we can see the creator of the universe, and recognizing that every single lens that we have will not be a full glimpse of who God is. But these lenses may be helpful in broadening our perspective, broadening our understanding, and therefore leaving more room for us to experience God in our lives. Because like I said in the other video, the bigger and deeper our understanding of God, the greater our capacity to have faith in that God, and the harder it is to deny the existence of God. One of my favorite quotes is on page 98, where she says, "An indigenous teaching holds that babies come into the world knowing everything they need to know. Soon the trauma and chaos of the world cause them to forget it. So they spend their lives relearning what they already knew, waking up to what they've always known." I think a lot of my faith walk, my faith journey has been a lot of unlearning. And she argues in this chapter that we are born with some wisdom within us that God has given us that empowers us, but we are in a world and a system that wants to dominate us and wants to indoctrinate us and tell us what we got to know and what we got to do and what we should think and how we should think. But she's arguing that we are born with everything that we need, because God is a good God and a good creator, and he knows how to create his humans. And he has given us all that we need. And we've been just born into a system that is trying to suppress that. And so it's teaching us and indoctrinating us and not letting us be in tune with what God has already given us, which is why there's so much we can learn from children, which is why I think Jesus says, look at the children. The kingdom is theirs. They are experiencing the kingdom. They're walking with God already. They already see. It's you adults that need to learn how to see, because you've been taught to be your own gods and not to humble yourself in service like kids so openly do. They tend to do, which is why I don't believe in original sin. I believe that doctrine is dangerous. I believe in original goodness. I believe that we've just lost touch with that. And the story of the Bible, the story of the gospel is becoming aware of what God has already given us. He's given us so much. We're born with so much. And as we follow Jesus, we are participating in the kingdom that is at hand. The kingdom that is already realized. We just gotta open up our eyes and realize that the kingdom is at hand. A couple more quotes and then we'll be done. This is a great book. I hope I've convinced you to read it. These last few quotes will be really short. On page 119, she says, "You can study air and make truthful claims about it, but ultimately, air is made to be inhaled." In the same way air is meant to be inhaled, God is meant to be inhaled and experienced. We can study God, we can make claims about God, but if we're not breathing in the essence of God and experiencing God, what are we doing? I want to inhale God. I want to walk with God. I want to be with God. And yeah, there's a place for study. There's a place for questioning. There's a place for figuring out which language is more effective. There's a place for that. But ultimately, I just want to walk with God. I want to be with God. I want to be with Jesus. I want to be with Christ. The divine cannot be described in one color, one tone, one hue, cannot be contained in one image, one metaphor, one symbol, cannot be bound by one tradition, one story, one idea. God is bigger and wider and more than any of our best and worst attempts to name God. Wow. I believe this to be true. And I think the issue that the Israelites experienced when Moses went on Mount Sinai and they just started building a golden calf, the issue there is that they were stuck to one image. And they said that this image that we've constructed, this is God and this is all God is. We have God in our hands. We can see him, we can touch him, we've built him. That was the issue. The issue was that they were trying to limit God. Do we do the same thing? Are we trying to limit God? Do we just have this one image or one idea or one approach and we're saying that there's no other way that I can experience God other than this one approach? Or are we opening our hearts and our minds, surrendering ourselves so that God can have his way with us and reveal himself or God's self in any way that he can to get our attention, to help us to commune with him, to help us to experience the presence of God. Well, that's all I'll share. I hope I've given you quite a bit to think about. But once again, this is God Is by Mallory Wyckoff, one of the most beautiful covers I've seen in a couple years. This book has really blessed me. I hope it will bless you if you check it out. And I want to keep wrestling with these ideas for you. Like I said, this is where I am today. And today's date is, February 15th, 2023. So this is where I am right now. But I'm going to grow. That's the beautiful thing about this faith journey. I'm going to grow. I'm going to be somewhere different in a year. I'm going to be somewhere different in 10 years. But as of now, God has given me everything that I need. God is beautiful. God is present. God is with me. And God is with you as well. Thanks for watching.